somewhere along your awakening journey, maybe right after a massive spiritual breakthrough or an emotional breakdown, you felt a change. You peeled back the veil, noticed all the patterns and the constant mental chatter, and then suddenly there was only silence. At first it felt incredible, even liberating, but bit by bit that sense of purpose dissolved, not in one dramatic moment but quietly. Like your soul turned the volume of life down and forgot how to turn it back up. You stopped pursuing, you stopped caring, not recklessly, but with that soft existential sigh. Then the question crept in, growing louder. Why do I feel so numb now that I finally see the truth? It's a strange paradox. We expect awakening to light a fire under us, but for many, especially the deeply introspective, the empaths, the true seekers, it does the opposite. It empties us. I once spoke with a friend, brilliant, spiritually tuned in, devouring every book by Eckhart Tolle, Alan Watts, Krishnamurti, and after her own dark night of the soul she had a huge awakening. She saw through the illusion of identity, ego, and the endless chase for external success. And yet just 2 months later, she was lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, barely able to move. She told me, I used to cry because I wasn't doing enough. Now I don't care if I do anything at all. I thought awakening would light a fire in me, not leave me feeling like this. Carl Jung, the father of analytical psychology, hinted at this post-awakening haze a long time ago. He didn't use today's spiritual buzzwords, but he deeply understood what happens when the unconscious becomes conscious. Jung said, enlightenment doesn't come by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. It sounds poetic until you actually grasp what that means. Awakening isn't a final destination. It's the start of a psychological death, the death of the person you believed yourself to be. Everything that once gave your life structure, your ambitions, career, relationships, even how you experience time, starts to fall apart. But here's the twist Jung would have highlighted. Your ego isn't gone. It's just disoriented. It's lost the map it used to navigate life, and without a new one, your drive just fades. So no, you're not necessarily depressed or lazy. You're in a kind of limbo. You've woken up from one version of life but haven't yet stepped into the next. But here's where it gets really interesting and often misunderstood. What you're feeling right now isn't failure. It's not clinical depression or anxiety. It's something much older, something sacred. Jung actually warned that modern society avoids this phase at all costs. This sacred pause, this empty space, this in-between. He believed it was crucial for true individuation, the process of becoming your real, authentic self. But no one talks about this part, do they? And that's exactly what we're going to dive into next. What's really going on in your mind after awakening, and how this strange lack of motivation might actually be the biggest spiritual upgrade you've ever had, if you can just understand it in the right way. Before we continue, if you're someone who loves expanding your mind and diving deep into life's hidden layers, make sure to subscribe to Nexphilo. This channel is here to reveal the invisible and support anyone navigating the weird, wild road of awakening. So if you've been stuck in that post-awakening fog, wondering where your spark disappeared to, no, you're not crazy. You're going through a deep psychological transformation that most people don't even have words for. It's a shift so powerful it doesn't just change your thoughts. It rewires your entire inner system. All those goals you used to chase, the endless to-do lists, 5-year plans, the hustle culture playlists, they don't light you up anymore. Not because you're broken, but because your entire motivation system is dissolving. And Carl Jung saw all of this coming long before it ever became a trending topic on social media. Let's break it down. For most of your life, your motivation came from your ego identity, the me you believed you were. You wanted to prove yourself, to be noticed, to succeed, to be loved. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just how human development naturally works. Jung called this the persona, the mask we wear to operate in the world. But awakening strips away that mask. Suddenly you're no longer playing to be liked or to win, because now you actually see the game, and that's when it gets strange. Without the mask, your old goals don't fit anymore. They were made for a version of you that no longer exists. So now you feel like a character who stepped off the stage and forgotten their lines. That's the real reason you feel unmotivated. It's not that you lost your drive. It's that you outgrew the fuel that once kept it running. Jung believed we're not meant to serve the ego. We're meant to integrate it and align it with something much deeper. He called this process individuation, the journey of becoming a whole, unified self. Not the small self chasing likes or approval, but the deeper self, the soul-level core that's connected to everything. And that deeper self isn't concerned with status, validation, or even having it all figured out. It just wants to express truth. So after awakening, your entire psyche begins to recalibrate. It starts rejecting anything fake, forced, or ego-driven. That includes your job, relationships, ambitions, and yes, even that dream board you made back in 2021. That's why awakening often feels both liberating and completely confusing. But Jung warned us, if we stop here we get stuck. Some people wake up and end up falling into a trap called spiritual bypassing. They convince themselves that nothing really matters anymore, that it's all just an illusion. So they check out. They float through life numb and detached. But they're mistaking detachment for disengagement. And the deeper self, it wants something entirely different. It wants to live through you. It wants to bring something divine into this very human experience. It doesn't reject the world. It reshapes how you show up in it. To step into that, though, you've got to pass through a strange middle phase Carl Jung describes so clearly, one that most people don't even realize they're in. It's a phase after awakening that rarely gets mentioned. It's not flashy, and it won't rack up thousands of likes. It's not about meditating on a beach in Bali or posting deep quotes on Instagram. It looks more like this, sitting in silence, not knowing how to explain what's happening inside you, while life around you keeps rushing forward. Jung would say you're not lost, you're in transition. You've stepped away from the ego, but you haven't yet found a new way to live from the soul. This space isn't a mistake, it's a sacred passage. But in our go-go-go culture, stillness is mislabeled as laziness. Taking a pause gets confused with being stuck, so you start to judge yourself. And that judgment blocks the very energy your soul is trying to reclaim. Jung had a name for this sacred pause. He called it enantiodromia, when things swing into their opposite. After awakening, your inner pendulum shifts from ego-fueled doing to soul-level stillness. You go from I must do it all to why do anything? And that swing, it's holy. It's how your inner balance gets restored. In myths and ancient teachings, this is known as the Hermit Phase. It's the death that comes before rebirth. It's the part where the caterpillar melts into goo inside the cocoon. Not a butterfly yet, not a bug anymore, just goo. And yeah, goo doesn't make progress. It doesn't hustle. It dissolves. And that's when the ego starts freaking out. It craves action, identity, direction. But the self is whispering, let go. I'm building something deeper. Here's where most modern spirituality kind of skips over the hard stuff. It says things like, just follow your joy or high vibes only. And yes, intention and energy absolutely matter. Carl Jung would tell you, if you try to skip the darkness, you skip the gold. Jung believed that integrating your shadow, facing the hidden, repressed, uncomfortable parts of yourself is not just important. It's essential. It's not extra credit. It's the core curriculum of being a human soul. This sacred nothingness you're feeling, that quiet, heavy pause, it's the moment your unconscious finally has space to rise to the surface. You're not failing. You're metabolizing. Your psyche is wise beyond belief. It will actually pause your motivation, your drive, even your access to clarity, on purpose, not to punish you but to force you to feel, to witness, to reclaim the parts of yourself you've buried just to survive. That's the real work. And here's the beautiful twist. The moment you stop resisting the void, when you stop trying to push it away, something strange begins to happen. Motivation starts to return, but it's different this time. It's not fueled by anxiety. It's not performative. It's not tied to hustle. It's something older and something quieter. A kind of soul-led movement that feels like remembering instead of chasing. Jung called this the emergence of the self, not as an idea, but as a living, breathing inner compass. So now you've walked through the void. You've sat with the silence, the stillness, the long, deep pause, and something new is beginning to stir inside you. It's not a lightning bolt. It's not fireworks. It's more like a quiet inner pull, not to go back to your old life, but to begin building a new one. This is when the self starts to speak, not in sentences or slogans, but in nudges, in resonance, in what Jung described as the symbolic life. He believed that once the ego has surrendered and the unconscious is integrated, we gain the capacity to live from a place far deeper than personality. That's when life stops revolving around survival and starts to revolve around meaning. And here's the twist. This kind of living is often beautifully ordinary. When the self leads, there's no frantic hustle. You simply respond. You're not driven by fear of missing out. You're guided by what aligns. You don't chase clarity. It arises naturally when you're ready. Living from the self doesn't mean you'll always feel traditionally motivated. You might still feel waves of fatigue, confusion, even grief. That's being human. But what you won't feel is that constant sense of inner betrayal. The feeling of dragging yourself through a life that doesn't fit. Instead, you might start to notice you're drawn to create, even when no one's watching. You say no to things that don't resonate, even if they look good on paper. You start following your curiosity, not your checklist. You choose peace over performance. This is the new fuel. It's not adrenaline. It's alignment. Jung called this living symbolically, not in fantasy but with soul, where you begin to trust your inner imagery, dreams, synchronicities, gut feelings as guidance. So what does this look like in real life? Sometimes it's as simple as asking different questions. Instead of "what should I do?" ask, "what's quietly calling me?" Instead of "what's the plan?" ask, "where is life nudging me?" Instead of "how can I prove myself?" ask, "what feels honest?" You begin to participate with life instead of trying to dominate it. And this doesn't mean giving up ambition. It means transforming it. Ambition becomes devotion to truth, to presence and growth. And the irony is, that kind of energy gets things done way more effectively than ego ever could. But now it's sustainable. Now it's soul-powered. This is the self's motivation, not to impress but to express. And it often leads you to create, serve, heal, teach, and build. Not because you should, but because your whole being says yes. So if you've been feeling like your spark is gone after awakening, it's the old fire that burned down, so that you could find a deeper flame. One that doesn't flicker when external winds blow. Carl Jung didn't promise an easy path. And if you're here, listening to this, you're already walking that path. It's not about getting back your old motivation. It's about discovering a new one, rooted in wholeness, not performance. This isn't the end of your awakening. It's the beginning of your becoming. If this spoke to you, if it helped you name something you've been silently navigating, drop a comment below. I'd love to hear what this journey has felt like for you. And if you want more content like this, where we explore psychology, soul and self-awareness in ways that actually make sense for real life, make sure to subscribe to Nexphilo, because awakening isn't the end of the story, it's where the real story begins.